Thank you very much,
Luciano.
Carlos, for inviting me.
Oh, my pleasure.
We should explain to our viewers how we met. I happen to know a gentleman who, a Turkish Jewish gentleman, whom I love, who I call my brother, my achi. I've known him for about 10 years, and I happened to need physical therapy, and I went in, and he told me, there's this guy, there's this Puerto Rican guy who really is great with muscles. And because I needed physical therapy, I was introduced to you. And I should tell the audience that his hands are absolutely phenomenal. His hands are phenomenal.
Thank you.
He was able to manipulate the muscle and do la cosa.
Right.
And he is very, very good in what he does. He's also quite a political mind. So he had asked me to come to the show, and of course I would do anything for Carlos.
Well, thank you. Basically, in your beginnings, in the Lower East Side and in Harlem, how was your upbringing in the Young Lords party?
Let me add that, let me begin by saying that I'm now writing an autobiography, and as I write it, I cry. It's cathartic. I am amazed that I've ended up, well, we can't say ended up because it never stops, but I'm amazed that I've gotten to this point fairly intact.
Correct.
My story is no different from many other dysfunctional stories. My father left when I was 3. I remember my mother screaming at him. He, interestingly enough, didn't say anything, but she was on him. You know, our sisters. And,
right.
And he had blown it, you know, in...
blown it in what way?
Well, she caught him with another woman, and he was not discreet enough to put some shade on it, as they say. Everyone in El Barrio was doing this, but he had to be open with it. And it caused problems. I'm not condemning him, I'm not condemning her. All I remember is the breakup and how that affected me. It impacted me horribly, Carlos, because I loved him. I adored him. To this day, I remember, I was 3 when he left, but I remember being in his arms. I remember him taking me to places. Right. I remember him meeting his little girlfriends, you know. I would never rat him out. You know, I love my father.
Well, of course.
And, but I would get beatings because my mother would say, where'd you get all that money from? And where's that lipstick from?
Right.
Mami, yo no sé. And I'd get, well, anyway, I grew up in the Johnson Projects. It was...
Where's that located?
112th, between 112th and 115th, between 3rd and Lexington.
Oh, okay.
It encompasses all of it. It goes right up to Park Avenue. And the Johnson Projects was one of the first housing projects in the city. Okay. East River houses, Johnson, 1 or 2. 1947 was the cornerstone. The cornerstone was laid, and that's when I was born. We were in 2D, apartment 2D, 165.
Okay.
I remember seeing Frankie Lyman and the Teenagers. I remember the Viceroys and the Dragons, which were 2 of the Puerto Rican gangs that were very, very big in those days. And if I may add, we're alive as a people because of those gangs. They were the ones who demarcated the lines and told other groups, this is as far as you can go and no further. Correct. They were the ones who protected us. Granted, they later evolved into criminal organizations, but basically they were gangs and they were territorial. I still know some of the elders today, and I kiss their hands, I kiss them, I bow to them when I see them, because they were the fighters for us. Guys like Tony Gorilla.
Okay.
All right? Guys like Kike. Guys like Jay, guys like Sapo. These were guys that, for me, were very, very important. Louis Machina, who's another gentleman of that age. At the same time that I was growing up, there were guys who I know came from my community, and I was so proud of them. Not only were they gangsters, if you will, gangsters, in that they were in gangs, but there were guys like Jimmy Sabater, who comes from my block.
Oh, really?
Played with Joe Cuba.
Right.
Willie Bobo. Great timbalero. Eddie Palmieri and Charlie Palmieri come from my block. Tito Puente comes from 2 blocks away, 110. So Joe Cuba comes from that area.
That's a great area. I mean,
yeah.
It's a lot of...
Gary Pantoja, who's a very fine conga player. Think of Machito lived on 111th Street, not too far. I used to see him all the time in La Marqueta when I was a kid.
Machito was great.
Knows 5 generations of my family.
Yeah, really.
5 generations of my family. So, for me, I grew up amidst the drama of the gangs. Also, we should add this, there was an Italian gang that was on the
Pleasant
east side, yeah, the Red Wings.
Right.
And the Purple Gang evolved out of that. So I grew up with Sicilians, Puerto Ricans, Hasidic Jews, and African Americans. Can you imagine that melange?
Well, it's good that you grew up in such a multicultural environment. I myself am a product of the Lower East Side, which was a multicultural environment. Chinese, Russian, Jewish, Black, Puerto Rican. It was a collage of different colors, and it was a good upbringing, I have to say. It makes you.
It does, and to this day, if I go into a shul, I'm at home. If I go into a pizza shop, or I go to a place called the Paulos, way downtown, it's a cheese, salami, prosciutto, everything place. And when I go in there, I'm at home.
Right.
Because when I grew up in East Harlem, the shop, most of the power institutions were Italian. We were just beginning as a people to be political.
Right.
So I would walk into these stores, and my name was Felipe Luciano.
Oh yeah,
So
perfect.
my
Italian
last name is Italian. So I mean, and I grew up with them scraping the bread from the hero sandwiches, we call them hero,
Right.
pouring olive oil on it. Remember that?
Oh yeah.
Doing General Salami with the peppercorns, if you remember that. They had peppercorns in them. Now they don't have it anymore. I mean, just piling it on. And for 50 cents, Carlito, you got a meal. So they would throw the provolone on, they throw the pickles, they throw the lettuce. In those days, they didn't shred the lettuce, if you remember. They just put the lettuce on. You got a sandwich that today costs $9.50, because I priced them,
Right.
for 50 cents. Then if you had another 25, maybe another 15 cents, you could buy a Mission soda. Do you remember Mission sodas? These were distinctively shaped bottles, and they came on all colors. They came in cola, pineapple, grape. Oh, that and a Mission soda, and I was good to go. That's the way it was, and the pizzas in those days. So I grew up respecting cultures. You knew what to do, what not to do among Sicilian men. I learned to respect Sicilian men just from that experience. For example, you see something, you say nothing.
Right.
You hear something, you say nothing. And I remember my mother, I remember the guys would come by. There was always one Italian man who used to sharpen the knives.
Okay.
And he came. There was the Iceman who would come up to the houses with a burlap sack on his shoulder, and his calves were this big, Carlos. Short guy. And he would literally walk up 6 flights of stairs to give your mother a 25-cent piece of ice. And if she didn't have it, he would cut it. You know, these are things that you remember with love. I remember the Rag Man. Did you ever see that?
I remember the Seltzer Man.
The Seltzer Man! Kaufman's. And I remember how we used to love to just jump on that truck. They had White Rock in those days.
White Rock.
White Rock, remember? And the Seltzer was on the outside with the blue bottles.
The blue bottles, yes.
And we used to die to get on those trucks. He would say, "Get the hell out of here!" So we already had a relationship with the Jewish American, because he was a Seltzer man.
Right.
The insurance man. Remember, in those days, because they had not introduced blacks and Puerto Ricans in that field, later on they did, it was always Jewish Americans who would come to us and say, "Would you like to buy insurance, Mrs. Luciano?" And so I developed a real love affair with Judaica because of that.
Absolutely.
To this day, you know, well, look at us and Jack,
Yes,
our mutual friend.
Absolutely. Basically, when I was growing up, there was a Jewish printer,
Yes.
and he used to call me in, and there was the Hebrew alphabet: Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Daleth, He, Val, Zayn. You
Look
know,
at that.
it was like it stayed with me. I was like probably 5 or 6. But
That's amazing.
the culture. You know, you adapt. In Chinatown, Ni hao ma, wan hao, she she. You know, you learn, you
learn
pick up.
to adapt.
Right.
Now they call that a chameleon. Now they say, "You're not being black. You're not being Puerto Rican, because you seem to be everything. Anytime anybody comes in the room, you just want to be." They don't understand how important diplomacy is. I had a teacher named Ethel Shapiro who began to teach me Yiddish.
Right.
And Yiddish was a forgotten tongue, and is a forgotten tongue. Who brought me to Lundy's. You know, I met her in junior high school 263. When we moved from East Harlem, I'll tell you about that later, she taught me Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Eloheinu Echud. Hear, O Israel, the Lord thy God is one. She said that prayer will get you over anywhere you go in the world.
Wow. Yeah.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Eloheinu Echud. to this day, when I say it, there's such a warmth. And she had a, I don't know if she had a wig on or not, but she was absolutely, and you know how your eyes